Hey legends, Blake here with another video, and I'm a little bit sick today, so I'm really happy that most of the talking in this one is going to be done by Dr. Brett, the aquarium vet. Dr. Brett is a vet who works all across Asia, Australia and New Zealand in large-scale aquariums, import facilities and whatnot to make sure that we get nice and healthy fish to look at those sorts of places. Of course, he has a wealth of knowledge, and I listened to his presentation on the Saturday, and of course I had to ask him if I could record it for you guys on the Sunday. It was really super informative, all about external parasites, ick and flukes. It goes all through the life cycle, treatment and everything else you'd need to know. And I just found it to be a really great in-depth dive into these sorts of parasites. If you've ever been confused or you've had a hard-fought battle that seems unwinnable at times. So huge thanks for Dr. Brett for allowing me to record this. I hope you all get something out of it. The good news is as well that on the day they were promoting the Aquarium School, which was a membership-based educational platform. However, now they've decided they're going to be releasing a whole bunch of stuff for free on YouTube. So I'll link down their channel below. Please check it out. There's 8 videos at the moment, but I'm sure there'll be plenty more soon, and it will just help us all to be better fish keepers. So stay tuned, and I hope you all like this video. Obviously, being one take, there are some awkward moments where I'm zooming in and out to try and allow you all to see the slides, and there is a bit of glare on the TV, but nevertheless, I thought it was just too good not to upload. So I hope you enjoy.
I'm Dr. Brett with the Aquarium Vet, and we are ultimately veterinarians for large public aquariums in Australia, New Zealand, and all throughout Asia. And we also work with research facilities and import facilities and that sort of stuff as well. But I am a hobbyist at heart. I've always kept fish my entire life. So I wanted to give a presentation today and talk about 2 of the most probably common parasites that we have to deal with, and that's white spot disease and monogeneans or flukes. And so we have our fish, which is a host. We've got this yellow circle down here, which is our environment. And then we have the presence of pathogens being in the water. And when something goes wrong in these circles, so that yellow circle, which is our environment, is going to be 80 to 90% of the diseases that we're going to be seeing in our aquariums. And so that's the big one. So that circle is going to get much larger, and we're going to be overlapping into our host, into our parasites, and that's when we're going to be seeing these infectious outbreaks. These are the organisms that we're going to be looking at. So in the top is what white spot actually looks like, and on the bottom here is a monogenean. That one in particular is a saltwater monogenean. Okay, so when we're looking at white spot, we ultimately have 2 main types: our freshwater white spot and our saltwater white spot. The freshwater one, for short, is ick, and that's because it's Ichthyophythrus multifilius, and it's a lot easier to say ick, so I'm going to be saying it for the rest of the talk. And the other one that we have in our saltwater is Cryptocaryon irritans, or as a hobbyist would say, would be crypto. And that's not cryptocurrency, that's just Cryptocaryon. So whenever we're dealing with any parasite, whether it's white spot or whether it is a monogenean, we have to understand the life cycle, because the life cycle is going to determine not only the treatment, but also the management of that parasite. Because the only way we're going to get rid of it in the aquarium is actually by breaking the life cycle. And why it's so important is not all of these stages are actually going to kill the parasite. So of these 4 stages, the therons, which are going to be these little guys that are swimming in the aquarium, finding the fish to attach onto, those are the only ones, for the most part, that are susceptible to the majority of the treatments that we're going to be using. Our trophons, our tomites, and the tomonts are ultimately not going to be killed by the medications that we're using. And the tomonts, they can remain, these are cysts, and they're actually very resistant to the treatment. And they can stay in our substrate or attached to plants or decorations, anything in the aquarium, for 5 to 7 days. So if we're adding one treatment or we're only treating for a week, I can pretty much guarantee you we're not breaking that life cycle and we're going to continue having problems in the aquarium. Now, so this is a video of a batfish, which is a marine fish that has a cryptocarrion outbreak. And so we see all these little white spots. These are sort of the classic look of what white spot looks like. I think I have a slide a little bit later, and it says not all white spots are white spot disease, because the white spots are actually a clinical sign. I have, over the years, been surprised where I looked at something, I thought I had a white spot outbreak, did a scrape, and I saw a parasite that I've never seen before, right? You know, and so you can never definitively say it's a white spot outbreak. I think a lot of the hobbyists or people who work with fish will have a pretty general good concept of looking at this and knowing that it is white spot. When I have this fish here, I'll take a scrape, go in and look at it underneath the microscope. And this is what they look like. They're a ciliated protozoan. So cilia means that they got tiny little hairs all around the diameter of the organism. And this causes them to actually just sort of cruise around. So when you're looking at them at the microscope, they're just gliding around. So the white spot, or those trophonts, will find the fish and they burrow underneath the skin. So if you look at that, this is our white spot. This is the skin, right? So that's the skin that's grown over top. That's that actual raised white spot that you're seeing on the fish. And again, highly resistant to the treatments that we're using. So white spot symptoms. I mentioned we have those sort of small raised salt-like bumps all over the fish. We can see it in the gills. The fish will also tell us that they're not happy. I mean, this is obviously a very severe infection, but if we don't have a severe of an infection like that, the fish just aren't feeling well. They'll talk to us and they'll let us know. So they clamp their fins, they'll hide in the corner, they'll be near the surface, they'll go dark in color or light in color, and they just sit there ultimately not looking like a happy fish. We will see flashing. Flashing again, and for those who don't know what flashing is where a fish will be in the water column, it'll swim down, rub against the substrate, or rub against staining in the aquarium. And the term is actually an aquaculture term, and the reason they call it flashing is because most fish have white bellies. And when you're looking at an aquaculture pond from the top, you've got this dark fish now coming down, flashing, and you see their bellies. So you're looking at a pond from the top and you're seeing all this flash of white, which is where the term flashing comes from. That you will see in not just white spots, but you see it with almost all parasites because it is ultimately resulting in that itchy uncomfortableness. We'll also see increased respiratory rates, and that's because we're having hyperplasia in the gills, thickening of the gills. Earlier on, before that hyperplasia forms, again, we're irritated, and so the gills start producing a lot of mucus, which will further clog the gills and prevent gas exchange from occurring. And so we'll see them near the surface of the water. Oftentimes, you can walk by your tank and you'll see a whole group of fish sitting where the water is returning from the filter, and they're just all sort of sitting with their head at that water stream because that's the best way for them to get their oxygen, and they know that. So what's really important when you have any parasite outbreak, it's not just the treatment, it's not just the drugs, it's the holistic approach, the overall management. One of the things that we can do with white spot is increase the temperature of the tank. Now, written on the side is, I wrote 30 degrees, but that's for fish that are temperate fish, that are tropical fish. If we have an aquarium that's a temperate tank where the fish prefer to be at 18 degrees, don't bump the temperature up to 30 degrees because you're gonna kill the fish. Work within the temperature range of the species of fish that you're keeping and put it at the highest end of the spectrum that fish can tolerate. The reason we want to do that is because that will speed up the life cycle of the white spot. And those the stages that are the tomons, which are in that substrate that normally could last up to 5 or 7 days, now we might be getting them hatching at 3 days. And so now the theronts are going to be in the water column quicker, so our treatment is actually now killing the parasite, allowing us to further break down that life cycle. And again, we want to look at everything in the aquarium. Make sure our water quality is okay, make sure we don't have aggressive fish, because that's probably why we had the white spot outbreak to begin with. And if we go to the treatment route and the drugs and break that life cycle, but didn't fix the underlying cause of it, you're going to end up with another white spot break down the road at some point in time. I'm also a big fan of adding vitamin C and garlic to the food. I know certainly on the forums, garlic is always a big topic when it comes to white spot. Do I think it's a treatment for white spot? Absolutely not. Do I think that it's a immunostimulant and an appetite stimulant? Absolutely. So it is something that I routinely use in not just white spot outbreaks, but really any health concerns that I'm having. The other thing that we want to do is we want to increase the frequency that we're vacuuming the aquarium. Those tomons that stay in the substrate, if we vac regularly, we're just simply removing them from the aquarium. So if we remove them, they're not going to be producing hundreds of other little theronts that are going to be going and affecting the fish. Now, when it comes to treatment, I listed medications versus treatments. I have, in the last maybe year or two, have been trialing with a medication called tribricin, which is trimethoprim sulfadiazepine, and giving that into the food. And I found that to be a very effective treatment along with the management. Metrodiazole or DMZ is also a really effective treatment. Certainly not everybody has access to it, you may need to actually have a consult with a veterinarian in order to get these prescriptions. The other treatments that are readily available and used at most aquarium stores are things like formalin, alkite green, and copper. I try to move away from these because at the end of the day, this is formalin, alkite green, copper. I mean, these are all pretty nasty chemicals to some sense, and adding them to the aquarium is going to have an impact on the health of the fish. I understand when you're trying to break that life cycle, sometimes they are needed, and it's particularly in very severe outbreaks. But the key thing is that with white spot, it takes time. We have a life cycle that lasts up to 21 days, and so we need to continue with our treatment, for up to that 21 days in order to actually break the life cycle. Now, with So flukes are also both a freshwater and a marine system. And we have our skin flukes and our gill flukes. Now, skin flukes prefer to live on the skin, hence the name skin fluke, but you can still find them in other areas, right? You can still find them on the gills or on the fins. Same thing with gill flukes. You predominantly find them in the gills, but you can still also find them on the skin. Now, I have written here live bearers and egg layers. So live bearers isn't referring to guppies, mollies, and platies. Live bearers is referring to the reproductive strategy of the skin fluke. So they actually have live babies. And that's important to know because if we diagnose a skin fluke issue, that's going to impact the treatment the treatment plan that we're going to be using. Versus our gill flukes, which are egg layers, we're going to have, again, a different approach. So monogeneans have a direct life cycle. So again, there is no intermediate host, which is why they are incredibly important parasite to deal with in the aquarium, because once you get them in there, they multiply very quickly. And we basically go from adult egg to adult or adult embryo to adult very quickly. When we look under the microscope, our skin flukes, this is what they look like. And these are the ones that have live babies. They don't multiply or build up in large numbers as quickly as our gill flukes because they only have one baby at a time. And if we look at the microscope, I'll go over and I'll point to it. But when you're looking at them, you can actually see the babies inside, and that helps you determine what you're dealing with. So if you use your imagination, this is a baby fluke. What it's pointing to are hooks. And so on the fluke's hector, they've got these hooks that are made out of chitin that latch onto the fish and dig in. That's what allows them to actually stay on the fish. And then they swing down, and as you'll see in the next video, to eat their skin and mucus and all the other stuff. So those haptors, the hooks that you're seeing in the middle, are actually the hooks of the baby that's growing in there. This is what they can look like. I think that's enough to make your skin crawl, right? You can see why a fish is flashing or rubbing on the aquarium, because there's so many of them, and it's incredibly irritating. So another, the other one that we typically see are gill flukes, and they are very common in discus, but I mean, I'm going to change a slide in the future, because it's not just discus that you're seeing them, and they're affecting pretty much all of the fish that we're seeing. And they have a very distinct characteristic where they have these 4 eye spots. So when we're looking down the scope, they've got these 4 black spots that you're seeing down at the bottom. And I think if you look closely at the top, you can even see those hooks up here. And then we got these big monsters here. These are what we will often see in our marine fish. These are Bendidia and Neobendidia species. They are egg-producing machines. All of this stuff that you see here, all of this black stuff, is a whole bunch of eggs. If we zoom into the eggs even more, there are these very distinct triangular structures. And over here, they've got these long stringy strands at each of the corners of the eggs, and they're very sticky. And so once they're laid, they will go everywhere into the aquarium, throughout your rock, the substrate, the stand, and they just stick. So they're really difficult to get rid of. Even regular vacuum is really challenging with these guys, because they just stick to everywhere. So monogenein treatment, traditionally, a lot of the medications that people use are formalin, malachite green, chlorophene, flubendazole. I left one off here, and yesterday someone brought up to me potassium permanganate, which is also another really effective treatment. And again, these are all sort of readily available, and can be effective and can't be effective. My go-to treatment is praziquintal, or Prazi for short, and I will add it at a dose of 5 ppm, and I will then repeat that every 48 hours, maybe even 24 hours, depending on how severe the case is. If I'm dealing with the live bearers, typically only 1 treatment is needed, or 2 treatments, because the praziquintal will kill both the adult and the embryo inside. However, if we have the egg-laying monogeneins, we need to repeat those doses for up to 6 weeks, once a week for up to 6 weeks, in order to get the eggs when they hatch, because the praziquintal will not touch the eggs, it will not kill them. And so sometimes we need that really long period to, again, break the life cycle of all the eggs that are hatching in the aquarium. And that's the main treatment for monogeneins. And so that basically covers the 2 main parasites that we have to deal with in aquariums, and touches on their life cycle. I encourage everybody to learn about the life cycles of the parasites that you think you're dealing with, because it will help you come up with that treatment and management plan. So that's it for me today. Hope you enjoyed that. I'm happy to take any questions or have a chat with you after the talk. All right, thank you.
So there you go, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that video. Huge thanks again to Dr. Brett for allowing me to record it. I found it to be a really great presentation. And yeah, once again, please check out their channel down below. And if you liked it, it always helps me out to smash like, hit subscribe, and all that fun stuff. And I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.